You're watching her pack her bags, and you're completely blindsided. Last week, she was talking about vacation plans for next summer. Yesterday, she seemed perfectly normal. Now she's telling you she needs space, that something just doesn't feel right anymore, that she's not happy. You're standing there asking yourself the same question that millions of men ask every single day. What the hell just happened? Here's what nobody wants to admit. When women walk away from relationships, they rarely tell you the real reason. They'll give you the sanitized version, the socially acceptable explanation that protects your feelings and keeps them looking like the good person. But the truth is far more complex and infinitely more revealing about female psychology than most men ever realize. Today, I'm going to expose the 7 hidden reasons why women actually leave relationships. Not the reasons they tell you, but the real psychological drivers that push them toward the exit door. This isn't about male bashing or female bashing. This is about understanding the biological and psychological realities that govern human attraction and attachment. By the end of this breakdown, you'll have a completely different understanding of why relationships end and how to recognize these patterns before it's too late. But I need to warn you, what you're about to learn will fundamentally change how you view every interaction you've ever had with women. Some of these truths are uncomfortable. Some will make you angry, and some might explain behaviors you've witnessed but never understood. This isn't feel-good relationship advice. This is raw psychological analysis based on observable patterns that repeat across cultures and generations. The first hidden reason women walk away has nothing to do with what you did wrong and everything to do with what you stopped doing right. This is the comfort trap, and it destroys more relationships than infidelity, financial problems, and communication issues combined. Here's how it works. In the beginning of your relationship, you were unpredictable. You had mystery. She didn't know what you were thinking or feeling at every moment. There was tension, excitement, and emotional uncertainty that kept her mind occupied with thoughts about you. But slowly, methodically, you became predictable. Your responses became automatic. Your behavior became routine. Your presence became expected rather than desired. Women are biologically wired to seek emotional stimulation. This isn't conscious choice. It's neurological programming that evolved over millions of years. When emotional stimulation disappears from a relationship, her brain interprets this as evidence that you're no longer genetically interesting enough to hold her attention. The comfort you thought was building intimacy was actually killing attraction. You started calling at the same time every day. You always said yes to her requests. You became completely available whenever she wanted your attention. You thought this showed love and commitment. But what it actually showed was that you had no other options competing for your time. Scarcity creates value. Abundance destroys it. When you became completely available, you became completely ordinary. The second hidden reason cuts even deeper into male psychology. Women leave because they stop seeing you as a leader worth following. This has nothing to do with traditional gender roles or outdated social expectations. It's about fundamental psychological dynamics that govern human attraction regardless of cultural programming. Leadership isn't about control or domination. It's about having a clear vision for your life and the confidence to pursue that vision, whether others approve or not. When you started asking her opinion about every decision, seeking her approval for your choices, and deferring to her preferences on matters that should be your domain, you signaled that you don't trust your own judgment. Women are attracted to men who can make decisions under pressure, who have strong convictions, and who can navigate uncertainty without becoming paralyzed by doubt. This attraction exists because throughout human evolution, women who partnered with decisive men were more likely to survive and reproduce successfully. That programming still operates in modern women's psychology. But here's where most men get confused. They think leadership means never listening to their partner or considering her input. That's not leadership. That's stupidity. Real leadership means gathering information, considering different perspectives, and then making clear decisions that you're willing to stand behind. When you constantly second-guess yourself or change your mind based on her emotional reactions, you demonstrate weakness that triggers biological disgust rather than attraction. The third hidden reason reveals something darker about human nature. Women walk away because they've found someone who makes them feel emotions you can no longer generate. This isn't about love or loyalty or moral character. This is about neurochemistry and the way human brains respond to different types of stimulation. Every woman has what I call an emotional baseline. This is the normal level of excitement, interest, and engagement she experiences in her daily life. When you first met her, you elevated her above this baseline. Your presence created positive emotional spikes that felt good and made her want more contact with you. But over time, she adapted to your presence. What once created excitement now creates nothing. Meanwhile, new men in her environment can still create those emotional spikes. The colleague who challenges her thinking, the trainer who pushes her physically, the old friend who suddenly shows interest. These men haven't been domesticated by familiarity. They still possess the unpredictability that generates neurochemical rewards in her brain. This is why women often leave relationships for men who seem obviously inferior to their current partners. It's not about objective value. It's about emotional impact. A successful lawyer might lose his wife to a bartender who makes her laugh. A devoted father might get replaced by a musician who makes her feel young again. The comparison isn't logical, it's neurological. The fourth hidden reason exposes the brutal reality of sexual market dynamics. Women leave because they believe they can do better, and modern society has given them unprecedented access to options that confirm this belief. Social media, dating apps, and professional environments expose women to a constant stream of men who appear more attractive, more successful, or more interesting than their current partners. This exposure creates what psychologists call the grass is greener syndrome. But it's not just about seeing other options. It's about receiving attention from other options. When attractive, successful men show interest in a woman, it validates her belief that she's settling in her current relationship. Every compliment from another man becomes evidence that she deserves more than what she has. The mathematical reality is harsh, but undeniable. If a woman rates herself as a 7 in attractiveness and her partner as a 6, she'll start believing she can attract an 8 or 9. Social media reinforces this delusion by showing her carefully curated versions of other people's lives while she compares them to her unfiltered reality. This creates a psychological trap where no relationship can compete with imaginary alternatives. The husband who provides stability gets compared to the fantasy of excitement. The boyfriend who shows consistent love gets compared to the possibility of passionate romance. Real men can't compete with fictional ideals, but women increasingly expect them to try. The fifth hidden reason reveals the most uncomfortable truth about female psychology. Women walk away because they've lost respect for men who prioritize their happiness over their own dignity. This sounds counterintuitive because society teaches men that making women happy should be their primary goal in relationships. But psychological research reveals the opposite. When men consistently sacrifice their own needs, preferences, and boundaries to keep women comfortable, they trigger contempt rather than gratitude. This happens because self-sacrifice signals genetic weakness and social irrelevance. A man who doesn't value himself enough to maintain standards communicates that he lacks the strength necessary for leadership and protection. Women interpret male self-sacrifice as evidence that he has no other options. If he's willing to accept disrespect, ignore his own needs, and constantly bend to her will, it means no other women want him. This creates a vicious cycle where the more he tries to please her, the less she respects him. And the less she respects him, the more likely she is to seek validation from men who won't tolerate her poor behavior. The paradox is brutal but consistent across cultures and time periods. The men who maintain their standards and enforce their boundaries keep women's respect and attraction. The men who become doormats in the name of love get abandoned once women find someone who won't accept that treatment. This isn't about being cruel or controlling. It's about understanding that respect is the foundation of attraction, and you can't maintain someone's respect by demonstrating that you don't respect yourself. The sixth hidden reason exposes how modern women have been programmed to view commitment as limitation rather than security. Previous generations understood that marriage and long-term relationships required sacrifice from both parties, but current social conditioning teaches women that any constraint on their freedom is oppression and that they deserve unlimited options without consequences. This creates what I call the commitment paradox. Women want the security that comes from male investment, but they resent the responsibilities that traditionally came with receiving that investment. They want the benefits of partnership without the limitations of partnership. When the reality of commitment conflicts with their fantasy of endless freedom, they choose freedom even when it leads to worse outcomes. Social media amplifies this problem by constantly showing women examples of single women living apparently exciting lives. Every vacation photo, every girls' night out, every achievement celebrated independently becomes evidence that commitment is holding them back from better experiences. The algorithm feeds them content that confirms their dissatisfaction while hiding the loneliness, insecurity, and relationship chaos that single life often contains. This programming is so effective that women will often leave stable, loving relationships during the exact periods when they should be most grateful for them. They abandon good men not because those men failed them, but because they've been convinced that any relationship is inferior to the fantasy of unlimited choice. The seventh and most devastating hidden reason women walk away is biological programming that most people refuse to acknowledge. Women have internal clocks that create urgency around different life stages, and when those clocks start ticking, they evaluate their current situations with brutal efficiency. This isn't just about wanting children, though that's certainly part of it. It's about deeper evolutionary programming that drives women to constantly assess whether their current partner represents the best possible genetic and resource provider for their future offspring. This assessment happens unconsciously, but influences conscious decision-making in powerful ways. When women hit certain biological milestones, usually around ages 28, 35, and 42, their brains trigger what researchers call mate evaluation periods. During these phases, they become hyper-aware of their partner's flaws, while simultaneously becoming more receptive to other men's advances. It's not conscious betrayal. It's biological programming, designed to ensure optimal reproductive outcomes. The cruel reality is that men who have been loyal, supportive partners can suddenly find themselves being evaluated against hypothetical alternatives during these periods. Years of dedication and sacrifice count for nothing when her biology is telling her to reassess her options. The timing often seems random to men, but it follows predictable biological patterns that have nothing to do with relationship satisfaction. Understanding these 7 hidden reasons doesn't guarantee you can prevent women from leaving, but it does give you the knowledge necessary to recognize warning signs and respond strategically rather than emotionally. Most men react to relationship problems by trying harder to please, sacrificing more of themselves, and becoming more available. But these responses actually accelerate the process they're trying to stop. The women who stay are the ones who continue to see value in their partners that they can't easily replace elsewhere. This value isn't about being perfect. It's about maintaining the psychological dynamics that create ongoing attraction and respect. It's about understanding that love alone isn't enough to sustain long-term relationships when biological and psychological forces are working against you. The modern dating landscape has fundamentally changed the risk-reward calculations that women make about relationships. Understanding these changes isn't about becoming cynical or manipulative. It's about making informed decisions that protect your emotional and financial well-being while maximizing your chances of creating genuine connection with women who are psychologically prepared for partnership rather than perpetual evaluation. These 7 hidden reasons reveal why so many men find themselves blindsided when relationships end. The comfort trap that kills attraction through predictability. The leadership vacuum that destroys respect. The emotional baseline that makes you invisible while other men remain stimulating. The sexual marketplace that convinces women they can trade up. The self-sacrifice that breeds contempt instead of gratitude. The commitment paradox that turns security into oppression. And the biological programming that triggers mate evaluation regardless of relationship quality. Understanding these patterns doesn't guarantee relationship success, but it gives you the awareness necessary to navigate modern dating dynamics strategically rather than emotionally. The men who recognize these signs early can adjust their behavior before it's too late. The men who remain oblivious will continue experiencing the same devastating outcomes while wondering what they did wrong. This isn't about becoming manipulative or cynical. It's about accepting the biological and psychological realities that govern human attraction instead of operating from comfortable delusions. Women don't leave good relationships for logical reasons. They leave because their programming tells them to seek better options, and modern society has made those options seem infinitely available. The choice is yours. Continue believing that love conquers all while watching relationships fail around you, or develop the psychological intelligence necessary to maintain attraction and respect in a world that's actively working against long-term commitment. Your future happiness depends on which path you choose.